I was recently contacted by my good pal Lawrence to fish a hidden gem of a water in the heart of Norfolk called Rocklandmere Fishery. I'd never heard of this venue before, but when I arrived and walked through those gates, it took me back to my childhood. Going through these gates and then coming across this beautiful pool surrounded by mature woodland. The margins were just lined with water soldiers, cabbage patches, and absolutely choked with lilies. It was an aquatic forest and something straight out of the old Mr.Crabtree books. So we arrived at the lake, and originally we were after the crucians. The crucians didn't seem to play ball, and it was quite frustrating. Even though we were employing the tactics that you obviously need to target the crucians, we were scaled down using very light tactics. They didn't play ball, and it turned out to be a fantastic tench session, which you know, was nothing to complain about, and it was great fun on the light balanced tackle that we had. It's possibly a tench though, by the way it's fighting, but you never know. Beautiful to play them on such light kit. And the centre pin, you've got so much control, and it's just a lot more fun. I think this is a tench though, not the crucian we're after. You know, there was a lot of fish activity, there was a lot of bubbling from tench. We did see some crucian bubbles pop up, and it looked quite promising, but you know, that just didn't materialise, and you know, it just turned out to be a fantastic session for the tench on the float with a centre pin and a float rod, which, you know, is the best way of catching them, and it's the method that I would use to catch them all the time if I could. Sadly, the big gravel pits aren't suitable for those sort of tactics, especially on the low stock venues. One of my favourites of the day was actually one of the smallest, and it was a tench that was perfection in miniature. It was such a beautiful looking tench, and you know, sometimes it's not all about the size. I like catching big fish, most people do, but you need to appreciate the species for what they are at whatever size. And this was an incredible looking little tench, perfect. So rather than put all eggs in one basket, the approach we decided to take was to fish a number of swims. And the way to do that is just pre-bait. Lightly looking swims. There was a few areas that sort of stood out where the water was slightly deeper. There was a nice sort of gap in the lilies where you could actually present a bait effectively. So walking around with a small bucket of bait and just basically balling out ground bait, and then revisiting those swims and fishing them staggered. Walking around the lake quite a bit, looking for those bubbles, looking for that fizzing up, the indication that the tench have arrived, and then fishing them. You know, I think if you're stuck to one swim and you're fishing out all day, fish can move out and they can push in, and you're not maximising your fishing, and your chances are limited. So if possible, because it's not on all venues, but if possible, fish as much of the lake as you can. Be a good crucian if it is, that's for sure. Little tench, isn't it? I think that's about it now. I think, oh, it's still going. Great fun. Let's bring him over these lilies. Get the net ready. Oh, they put up such a good fight. It's on this lovely float rod, £3 main line, and a size 16 hook. And that's all you really need. Lovely fish. Not big, but great fun on this sort of tactics. There you go. I think that's his lot. Just take some line off the pin, get some angle, and in she goes. Lovely little tench on the float, put up a great fight. You just can't beat it on the centre pin. Fantastic. And from a lovely venue as well. Magic. With regards to bait, I brought along with me the sort of traditional baits for crucians. I had some sweet corn with me, I had some small 6mm pellets, soft hookable pellets, and obviously some of the similar pellets to go over the top. Once I realised the crucians weren't really having it, I switched to a Scopex sweet corn bait, which was just brilliant. They loved it. You know, being such an intimate venue, the method was always going to be simple. It was always going to be a float approach, and you know, it was fishing close in, so a 15-foot float rod was perfect, just to drop bait straight under the rod tip. There's no need for casting out, so it was pretty much bait up, wait for the fizzes to come up, where you've got all the tench sort of feeding on the bottom and stirring up all the silt. You get all those patches of bubbles come up, really exciting stuff, and then just lower the bait right on it with a waggler dotted down, so you could just see the tip, a really sensitive float, straight down to a hook, and just put, instead of plummeting for the depth, because it was quite silty, just basically put like an SSG shot straight on the hook, and just let that be your plumb, and then just go slightly over depth with a couple of like #1 shot, just to, you know, just to fish slightly over depth for the fish. And oh, it was exciting stuff. I mean, when that float slipped away and you hooked into these fish, they absolutely flew off. I mean, some of the battles were immense. I mean, these tench were on steroids. It was incredible. And with the centre pin, you know, you can't beat that either. The control that you've got with the centre pin, and the fact that you're not casting, that was the ideal setup. And it was, you know, in my eyes, that's the only setup for a water like that. One of the great things about fishing is you're out there in nature, and you know, you can appreciate nature. You come across some great sights, and that's what I really enjoy about being out in the countryside and being so close to all the wildlife that goes on, especially around water. And on that particular session, we come across a moth. It was Lawrence filled me in on what it actually was. I just saw a big moth and was absolutely amazed by its beauty and what an amazing creature it was. Turned out it was a popular hawk moth, but what a spectacular animal, and great to see. It was such an enjoyable session. I absolutely loved it. We had some great tench. I don't know how many I had overall. You know, the crucians evaded capture, but that's another story. But the tench fishing was excellent, and do you know what? They were perfect. They were lovely condition tench. Not huge by sort of national standards, but on balance tackle, perfect. And the fights were immense. The fishing was immense, and it was a great day out.